Hello everyone, it's Reverend Deanna Cox here for your midweek reflection for the aiming at Sunday, November the 20th, reflecting on that this week. And so this Sunday is known as the Reign of Christ Sunday, which is the last Sunday of ordinary time in the church, which means that's the time where there's not a lot of like special festivals like Christmas or Easter, or it's just ordinary time. And, so it's exactly like it sounds, ordinary. And this coming Sunday will be the last Sunday of that time. And it is known as the Reign of Christ Sunday, which is a time where we set aside to think about how Christ is Lord of all, not just all creation, all people, and Lord of all of our lives, like all our words, all our thoughts, all our actions, Lord of all of us and of all people that we know, and how that might impact our lives. And it's kind of interesting that it comes right before we tip into Advent, which is the time leading up to Christmas. And it's the Advent is waiting for the birth of the Christ child, and a time to reflect and ponder on what that story of our faith means in our lives. And it's interesting that this reign of Christ, like thinking of God's reign in the world, and as we prepare to wait for the birth, this inbreaking of the divine into our world today, it's just poignant for me to think about how those two are both and, I guess, for it. And so for this Reign of Christ Sunday, I wanted to think about leadership, how we as people of faith are leaders in our communities, how our faith leads our lives, guides our lives, and shapes how we are in the world, and also just leadership of the world in general, like what is it we are called to be and to look for in the leaders in our world as people of God. And so it's fitting because we have several of us have just attended a workshop in Bashaw that I talked a bit about last time, and it essentially is about leadership. What words, what behaviors are leading our lives and stopping us. In particular, that was what it was focused on. What is stopping us from being all that we can be? And so this Sunday, those of us who were at that workshop are going to share a bit more about that leadership. And so I encourage you to participate and tune in if you can, join in person if you can. And the other thing I want to talk, like going beyond that, like I said, this is the tipping point into Advent. And for our Advent season, we've chosen to do the theme Angels Among Us, and focusing on the message of the angels in our Advent and Christmas stories about not being afraid, and not being afraid to be the leaders that God has called us to be, not being afraid to let our faith guide us in the way that it is supposed to be, and not being afraid to hold others in our midst accountable for what they are doing. And so to highlight that, this is also, we're looking at maybe the angels among us, people that are leaders in ways in the community that maybe aren't necessarily highlighted, that are helping underprivileged or marginalized people, any ways that people are bettering the community and showing the leadership that we are all called to emulate. And as I was, scrolling through Facebook, I stumbled across a post by a colleague that says that this is the start of Metis Week. And so, I don't know if you can see in the background, I was gifted a few years back with a Metis Sash. And so I wanted to highlight that and talk about the leader, Louis Riel, who dedicated his life to defending Métis people. Things that I didn't know about the Metis Sash is it used to be a lot longer and had a lot of function to it, as well as decorative, and that much like tartans, each of the weave of the sash, they would often distinguish the different families. They were longer and wider and often used to help pull out canoes or haul things. The fringe at the bottom could be used as an emergency sewing thread if needed. It's just really interesting stuff. And so I encourage you to, as part of our dedication to truth and reconciliation, to delve into, to learn a little bit more about the Metis Sash and Metis people in our area. Also, this week we will be showing one of the episodes of the series 8th Fire with Wab Canoe in Daysland. And also I think the town of Killam, like the Adult Learning, in Killam is showing another installment of that 8th Fire series. And so I encourage you to take some leadership in your own truth and reconciliation journey and either learn about Métis people or attend one of these events that we are hosting and or that our communities are hosting. And then to also spend some time reflecting on how your faith is leading and guiding your life. A little kind of one-liner for our service is Kings and Shepherds, pondering leadership and our faith in our world today. And so I invite you to join us on that journey of reflecting on leadership, how God is reigning in your life or not, and how you can try and emulate those types of traits that we are called to live into or that we admire in others, and how we can use them to better ourselves, better our world around us. Maybe how we can open ourselves to the inbreaking of heaven on earth that is going to come with Christmas, as our faith tells us. And that was what the workshop was about, like how to set aside all the stuff that blocks us from moving forward, from the limitless possibilities that we can dream and the wonder that God has placed in us as children that we often seem to lose somewhere along the way. And so I invite you, or challenge you actually, to do something this week to rediscover your childhood wonderment. And the second piece is to spend some time reflecting on the leader that you want to be, the leader that we are called to be as people of God. So thank you for joining me for this midweek reflection, pondering kings who are in castles and rule with armies, and shepherds who live in the fields with the sheep and rule with a shepherd's hook, and how that might translate into our lives today, into the leadership we desire and the faith that guides us. So friends, thank you for joining me for this reflection. Take care and God bless.